Hello, welcome to the second episode of the Uncomfortably Candid podcast. I am really excited today because it's a topic that I am super passionate about. Last week we talked about how to be real and use the 3 C's of candidness to help you achieve a goal. And one of those C's is conviction, and we're just kind of going to dive a little bit deeper into that and talk about how to figure out what you value and use that to stop people pleasing. So conviction is really just living by your values. And in psychology, we have a term called value congruence. And really that's all it means is living in accordance with your values. I read an article about the main reason that millennials are in therapy and talked about anxiety, talked about depression, talked about stress. But the main reason that millennials are in therapy is because of indecision, decision fatigue, having too many options and not being able to make a choice. What has helped me and what I think part of the answer is to this problem is to figure out what you value. I've asked several people, what's important to you? What matters most to you? And they don't know how to answer that question. It's so important to be intentional and figure out what you value so you can start making authentic, candid choices. So I do this by asking myself and my clients. I'm a coach, and so I ask my clients these questions. I use these with them, but one question you can ask yourself is, what is your perfect day? And just start writing out what you would do from the time you woke up until the time you went to bed. But my favorite question to ask, because I think it is so revealing, is explain to me how you would spend your day if time and money were not a factor. And I love this. If you follow me on social media, you've heard me talk about this before. But I was asking someone this question, and she was supposed to be she had a goal to go back to school. And I asked her this question, and her answers did not have anything related to the degree that she was going to go back to school for. And so I kind of showed her that, and I was kind of like, well, this doesn't match up. And I was like, going back to school is a huge time commitment. It's a huge financial commitment. And I was like, I know, because I went back to school at almost 30 years old. But I didn't tell her what she should go back to school for. As a coach, I was just helping her see that the reason that what she wanted to go back to school for was not related to any of the answers, which I'm calling her values. And she came back the next week and she told me that she found a different degree at the same school that almost was related to almost all of the answers to that question. And I was like, wow, thank you, Jesus. Because I had no idea that degree was at that school. Like, I didn't get off the coaching call and go research, but that's what coaching does. It empowers my clients to go and make authentic choices for themselves. Because if I make a decision for them, they're way less likely to do it because it has to be intrinsically motivated. So my job is to get my client's wheels turning. And that's exactly what this question did. She realized she was going back to school for the first degree that she was going to go back for because it was safe and it made her feel financially stable and secure. But that is fear-based. So what this question did was it allowed her to figure out what she valued so that she could have the courage to make an authentic and candid choice in what she set her goal as for going back to school. Another way to do this is to basically deconstruct an emotion to find out what you need, to find out what you value. I was talking with one of my clients. She came to me and she was like, yeah, this past week I got really frustrated. I had a friend who asked me if I could watch her older kid while my younger kid took a nap. And I just ended up being so frustrated. Like, I wish I could have said no. And I was like, well, why did it upset you so much? You know, your son was napping, like, and she was like, well, that's when I normally pick up. I do laundry. I do any dishes. You know, that's when I do my chores. And I said, okay. And why can't you do those when your son wakes up? And she goes, well, I like to be with him. I don't like to be worried about doing other things. So we took the emotion of frustration, of anger. We figured out that a need was being encroached upon. Her need to be able to get things done so that she could be present with her son when he was awake, which is the value, being present with her son. So, I mean, you can do this with positive emotions as well, but this deconstruction is basically like asking yourself, what keeps you up at night? Or what problem of the world do you want to solve, but just in a more concentrated form? And you can do it for specific situations, like in this instance. But emotions always tell us something. And we were created with positive and negative emotions. Jesus got angry. Jesus was sad. And so, but for so long, there was so much shame. I felt so much shame around negative emotions. I didn't know how to express myself, and I didn't want anybody to know that I had needs. So anytime I did need to express myself, it would be passive aggressive. So, you know, if someone did get mad at me for saying that I needed something, I could say, oh, I was just kidding. That was my fallback. You know, I didn't want to disappoint anybody or upset anybody. So I said it in a passive aggressive way. So that way, if they came back upset, I could say, oh, I'm just kidding. But because I couldn't express myself in a healthy way, I was labeled as too sensitive. And to be honest, I probably was, because I didn't know how to regulate my emotions. And instead of controlling them, they had control over me. So, you know, it's never too late to use a feeling wheel. Figure out what you're feeling. I started using a feeling wheel in my late 20s. And it helps. It feels so juvenile, but when you didn't learn how to do this as a child, it's time to start whenever you can. So my other tip for, you know, being able to express yourself in a healthy way is get around safe people. Like, find safe people that you can express yourself with, to practice with. And it is okay to feel two emotions at once. I forget who told me that, but that was the most revelatory thing that I'd ever heard before in my life, for some reason, was that I could feel multiple emotions at the same time. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Because when I had a negative emotion about something, when I was sad or angry, sometimes I would just try and thank my way out of feeling the negative emotion by telling Jesus everything that I was grateful for. And then I realized that, like, oh, I can be grateful for these things, but I can also feel this negative emotion in this circumstance and bring it to the Lord. So you can feel multiple emotions at the same time. You might know that, but I didn't, like 6 years ago. But the reason it's so important to figure out what your values are is because it helps you say no. And that's people pleasing 101, being able to say no. My client came back to me the next week, and she said she had told her friend that she couldn't watch her kid anymore. And what gave her the courage was that she valued being present over pleasing her friend. And Jesus said that we should let our yes be our yes and let our no be our no. And when we do that, we are living candidly. We are living authentically. And when we say yes to something we really don't want to, we are being dishonest with ourselves and that other person. And that's not really people pleasing at all. It's like the opposite of people pleasing. So being like lying to the other person pretty much. And so I hope that you take away from this how important it is to learn your values. It not only helps you set goals, it helps you to in your relationships, because when you say yes to something that you really wanted to say no to, you become bitter, you become resentful. And so it's just better to be honest and better to be upfront, even if you disappoint someone, than it is to lie. Um, so yeah, I enjoyed talking about this. This is something that I'm super passionate about because for so long I struggled with this, and I felt like in being empowered and being empathetic could not happen at the same time. Like if I felt empowered, then I wasn't being empathetic to the other person. And that's totally not true. You can feel empowered and be kind and empathetic and caring and loving to that other person. But in order for us to love well, we have to understand God's love for us first. You can't love empty. So yeah, feeling empowered does not mean that you're not being empathetic. And for so long, I thought that was the truth. So yeah, if you want to get on my email list or get the 5 Things to Focus PDF, 5 Things to Better Focus. Don't know what I just said there. Or if you just want to, keep in the loop, go to my website. I spelled it out for you in last week's episode, and I can go ahead and put it in the description of the podcast too, so that makes it easier. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.